On November 28, 1987, a Boeing 747, the Helderberg, fell out of the sky and plunged into the pitch-black waters of the Indian Ocean. All 159 people on board were lost. The official story? A fire broke out in the cargo hold, for reasons unknown. But for decades, that simple, unsatisfying answer has been haunted by a much darker possibility, that this was no accident at all, but a state secret that got out of control and was then buried at sea.
And this, right here, is the heart of it. This is the accusation that turned a terrible tragedy into one of South Africa's most enduring conspiracies. That statement was made by Dr. David Klatzo, a forensic scientist speaking to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He wasn't just guessing. He was alleging a deliberate illegal act, and he named names: Armscor, the apartheid government's shadowy arms agency. This one sentence sets the stage for everything. The idea that the fire wasn't just bad luck, it was caused by a secret, dangerous cargo.
So, to really get our heads around the conspiracy, we have to go back. We have to understand the tragedy itself. Let's rewind to that night in 1987 and walk through the final, terrifying hours of Flight 295.
Okay, so look at this timeline. For about 9 hours, everything is perfectly normal on this long-haul flight from Taipei. But then, things start to go horribly wrong. At 23:48, the pilot officially reports a smoke problem. Less than 20 minutes later, the plane is gone. But here's where it gets really interesting. Look at that second point. The Flight Engineers Association later argued that a fire might have actually started hours earlier. And that one detail, if it's true, changes everything. Why didn't they land sooner?
This is the last clear message from Captain Dowie Uys. His voice was reportedly calm, but the words are absolutely chilling. A smoke problem is a pilot's worst nightmare, especially over the middle of an ocean. They declared an emergency, they started descending, but whatever was happening on that plane was happening way, way too fast.
And this is the number that really matters. 159 people, passengers and crew. Not a single survivor. The wreckage was found deeper than the Titanic, making the recovery an incredible challenge. To this day, it's South Africa's deadliest air disaster. And it's for those 159 souls that the search for real answers has never stopped.
In the wake of this massive tragedy, the world wanted answers. The apartheid government was under huge pressure, so they launched an official inquiry. It was called the Margot Commission, and its job was to figure out what happened.
Now, on paper, this looked totally legit. It was led by a respected judge, Cecil Margot, and it even had international experts involved. It was supposed to be the definitive investigation that would give the families and the country closure. But as we're about to see, its final report ended up creating more questions than it answered.
So here's what the commission officially concluded. Yes, there was a massive fire in the cargo hold. Yes, it brought the plane down. But the most important question, what started it? They came up totally empty. The final verdict was undetermined. They guessed it could have been something as simple as cardboard and plastic packaging. They cleared the airline, ruled out foul play, and basically closed the case. For a lot of people, that just wasn't good enough.
When the official story leaves a giant, gaping hole like, we don't know, something else is bound to rush in and fill it. And that's exactly what happened. Investigators, aviation experts, and the victims' families, they just didn't buy it. The whispers of a cover-up started almost immediately.
And this is where you get two completely different stories. The official version is one single sudden fire, but the Flight Engineers Association put forward a bombshell theory. There were two fires, a smaller one that happened hours earlier, which the crew might have even put out, and then a second monster blaze that they couldn't stop. Now, why is that so important? Because if you have a fire on a plane, you land immediately. The fact that they might have kept flying for hours suggests they were told to, maybe to keep a secret cargo from being discovered.
And science seemed to back this up. Experts who looked at the wreckage said this was no ordinary fire. The damage suggested it burnt incredibly hot and incredibly fast. It was called a promoted fire, which means it was fueled by something that carried its own oxygen. It didn't need the air in the cargo hold to burn, it was a chemical blaze. And that points to something way more dangerous than cardboard.
The more people dug, the shakier the official story became. And these weren't just theories anymore. The doubts were being fueled by critical pieces of evidence that, well, conveniently went missing.
First up, the most basic question of all. What was actually in the cargo hold? The answer should have been on the cargo manifest, right? Simple. Except it wasn't.
This is just mind-boggling.
Years later, South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission took another look, and they could not verify that the manifests they had were the real original documents. There is no reliable, confirmed list of what was on that plane, which means anything, literally anything, could have been loaded on, hidden from the official records.
Okay, so missing paperwork is one thing, but what happened next suggests something much more deliberate. We're talking about missing audio recordings.
This is maybe the biggest red flag in the whole story, the Zur tape. This was the master recording of all communications between the plane and air traffic control back in Johannesburg. If that two-fire theory is correct, if the crew reported an earlier problem, if they were given instructions from the ground, it would all be on this tape. And wouldn't you know it, the tape went missing shortly after the crash. We will probably never know what was said in those crucial hours.
So, let's connect the dots. We have a fire that burns like a chemical. We have missing evidence. It all screams cover-up. But why? What could possibly be so important that a government would risk a passenger plane? To answer that, you have to understand the political reality of South Africa in 1987.
Let me introduce you to Armscor. In the 80s, South Africa was an international pariah. There was a mandatory UN arms embargo, meaning nobody was supposed to be selling them weapons. Armscor was the apartheid regime's solution, a huge, secretive, state-owned company whose entire job was to get weapons and military tech, by any means necessary.
And these guys were masters of the shadows. They used a global network of front companies and covert deals to get what they needed. A big part of their work was developing their own advanced missiles, which required some seriously volatile chemicals. And for years, there have been allegations from former employees and insiders that the national airline, South African Airways, was routinely used as Armscor's personal off-the-books courier service.
And this brings us right to the terrifying heart of the conspiracy theory. The substance investigators believe was on board was ammonium perchlorate. Put simply, it's a key ingredient in solid rocket fuel. It is incredibly unstable, it can ignite from just a jolt, and critically, it is a powerful oxidizer. It creates its own oxygen as it burns. It perfectly fits the description of that promoted fire. The theory is that this was the undeclared cargo in the hold, destined for Armscor's missile program that ultimately doomed Flight 295.
So here we are, decades later. Apartheid has fallen, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission held hearings, and yet, the full story of what happened to the Helderberg is still shrouded in mystery. The definitive proof, one way or the other, has never seen the light of day.
Just look at this image. It's haunting. These are actual pieces of the Helderberg's fuselage, recovered from the ocean floor and painstakingly reconstructed. It's really the perfect metaphor for this entire investigation. We have all these pieces, the eyewitness accounts, the scientific data, the official reports, the conspiracy theories, but they've never been fully assembled into a picture that makes complete sense. The story is still broken.
And so we're left with this one fundamental question. Was the loss of the Helderberg a tragic one-in-a-million accident that we'll never fully understand? Or was it something far more sinister? A government smuggling dangerous weapons on a passenger plane, a disaster that followed, and a massive cover-up designed to bury that deadly secret at the bottom of the sea forever.
The mystery of Flight 295 is a powerful reminder that so many secrets from South Africa's past are still buried deep. It's a huge, lingering question mark in the country's history, and it's far from the only one. So make sure you stick with us as we continue to dive into the nation's biggest and most compelling conspiracies.